my father while watching the shadow of death appearing dim in front of their eyes. Were not issued to the mouth what seems still will. Brother as wonder if it is not necessary to have heard something of the now, saw my face. I answered, I wish it so. I was thinking and also it is good or bad for the sick bringing up such a thing. Proceeds from here. We were subjected to finally talk to his uncle and cannot persists. Uncle was also tilt the neck. It is there that wanna say. 'Twould be a shame even to die not to say. And say, neither may be bad for prodding from here. Story has become a finally guzu. Coma came to them. Examples mother as I do not know anything of. Was pleased rather to chig I think it and just sleep. Such as long well comfortably sleeping. Also saved those who are near. My father sometimes her eyes open. Who heard suddenly and so what was? That no one had been limited to the name of the person who was sitting there until just while ago. Made dark and bright place and the father of consciousness. Its bright place only, like a white thread to sew the darkness, appeared to be continuous at a distance. My mother was not unreasonable also was confused with normal sleep a coma state, of which the tongue is gradually, it came entangled. What to obscure the Ryoru is as even out good. There was much be put away and inconclusive. When you start talking habit that is, the more does not appear to the sick of the critically ill. Issued a strong voice. It has lifted the tone unremitting more than a solid. Had to be to gather the mouth to the ear. Is when cool the head good mood. Yup. I am a nurse to the other party. E.t. further take the father of the water pillow. And then was placed on the ice bag containing the new ice to the top of the head. Pieces of cracked ice, taken pointed to the rustling is, while the settle in the sack. I am outside it balled up the amount of father had kept it in softness. At that time my brother is come into the Sutai corridor, past the post of one mail and my hand remains silent, out the left hand of the person who was free. I was raised immediately suspicious that received the mail. It was compelling those heavy Makata compared to the normal letter. It was not even put to the parallel of the bag. Also I did not even amount to be placed in the average of the bag. Wrapped in rice paper. It had been stuck in the glue the Fujim Tate Yasushi. When I received it from the hands of his brother, I noticed it is immediately the registered mail. View returned the back and there in the teacher's name it was written in the letter that respectfully. Do not let go of the hand because I do not go to mean that immediately cut the seal. Plugged into a little pocket it. 17. That day seemed to have particularly bad can the sick. When I was standing seated as let's go to the toilet. His brother was IKEA. In the corridor was a challenge in tone. Such as guards and where to go. Care was taken as very much I state must not naku to like being in as much as possible near. Because it is a little strange. I had also thought so. Flashlight the letter was returned to remain the addition to the hospital room. My father opened the eye. The name of the people who are lined up and there asks the mother. When is any mother who? This is gonna be anyone one by one description. Father nodded each time. When not Shukoka. The mother is raised tension of voice. What is the people's? Reminded and didn't know. Apparently various thank you for your help. My father was saying. Then also it fell into a coma. People who were surrounding the bedside had stared for a while how the sick leave of silence. Soon came out to the next room standing as one of them. Then also it stood alone. I also removed the finally seat in third person. It came to my room. I have had a goal to see open through the mail that was put to the bosom while ago. It was not the difference in gestures that can easily be in the bedside of the sick. However, since the amount of what was written is too much, I did not go to the translation to read through there to breath. I have devoted a special time to an NDE mission. I broke torn to scratch draw a strong wrapping paper of the fiber. Those coming from in the well-behaved, well-written document into the ruling drawn vertically and horizontally, was of the like, for the sake of convenience to seal to do so, had been folded to a fourfold. I have marked with Western paper habit. It was flat as easy to read, folded in reverse. My heart, this large amount of paper and shirushiki is. Was I surprised? Think we'll talk about everything. That of the hospital room is applied to the mind at the same time. I have started reading this book. Before you do not finish reading, father will surely become if, at least, from the mother or from his brother, or from his uncle if it is not it. There's a foreboding that our Goku, to be called it was. I could not bring myself to read what was written by the teacher with fall. I'm just the first one while fidgeting, read the page. The page had been spelled as below. When was queried from your past, is no courage that could not be the answer that in front of you now. I believe that we have obtained the freedom to narrate it to the obvious. But the freedom is waiting for your Tokyo. You are in no or lost freely only if worldly become the one who is, therefore, to be used when you can take advantage of it. My past and opportunity to will tell us an indirect experience forever in your head to you as departing. Then, the words that promise so much when that firm is alike become a lie. I am forced to, the place to be referred to in the mouth. I decided to say with a brush, quote, I've read up there, or the first time that this long has been written for what? Was able to know the reason for this clear mouth of my food and clothing. And do not care about the teacher Yokosuka letter for such a thing. I believed from showed. But hey, teacher of the things that take the brushes. Why writing that incident this long? I wonder now willing to show me. Teacher, why would not wait until I go to the capital? Speak because freedom has come. But that freedom must also be lost forever? While I said repeatedly in your heart, it suffered no its meaning. I was attacked by a sudden anxiety. I tried to read the later followed. From that time toward the hospital room, I heard the voice of a big brother to call me. I rose up and also surprised. Corridor in the Stephen only exit as the went to those who are of everyone. I finally was ready on the father and he came last moment. 18. He had imperceptibly come doctor in the hospital room. It was the place to try her enema from the main meaning that to ease as much as possible sick. Nurse was sleeping in another room in order to rest the last night of fatigue. Unfamiliar brother had been confused standing, looking at my face. It remained such as lend a little hand. He had arrived at the seat. I on behalf of his brother. Was held against the bottom of the buttocks of the father of the oiled paper. Father of state came a little relaxed. Doctor who was sitting on the bedside for about 30 minutes. It went on, acknowledged the results of the enema. Also to come. Went back. The way home. Had to turn down all the way as me call it any time if there is if things. I also tried to read the letter of the teacher left the verge likely there's a strange hospital room. But I was not accustomed to feeling that Yusuko Shimohiroshi chestnut. To sit down as soon as the front of the desk. Also was not likely to be called in a loud voice from the brother. Then if called now, it is and finally it was Chanwa my hand. I went I bows out only page a letter of teacher just pointless. My eye was meticulously look at the strokes were Michian in the frame. But there was no room to read it. Afford to browse even did not Satoshi Taba. I looked to open one after the other until the page sister best. Also tried to put on the desk, folded it to the original of the street. Haiku suddenly close to the conclusion at that time came to my eye. By the time this letter falls into your hands, I will not in the other world, LL be especially dead. I thought startled. My chest was moving and noisy until now felt as condensed at a time. I also returned Hagori the page in reverse. Then I went to read to the dead at a rate of 1 by about 1 clause in one piece. I between the instant, as you know that you must know of me. The character shimmering, tried to Sushidoso in the eye. To once to know the time of I was just only the safety of the teacher. Past teacher. Former teacher dim the past and promised to talk to me. Such a thing for me was totally useless. While I Hagori the page to Delma. I do not you easily given the knowledge necessary to fold this long letter likely was Jiretsu. I also went to the hospital room of the doorway to see the state of my father. Bedside of the sick was Zongai quiet, and sister-in-law Teja the mother sitting there with a bumbling tired face. I heard that. What's the situation is? Mother answered. I seem to each other have a little now. I put a face to the front of the father's eye. It's how little by Anamir mood is now liking, he asked. My father nodded. My father clearly such as thank you. Father of spirit Zongai was not the lightheadedness. I also went back and left the hospital room to my room. So while watching the clock, we examined the arrival and departure table of the train. I retightened the band suddenly stood, threw the letter of the teacher into the broke, then out of the kitchen door to the table. I'm crowded only Stephen to crazy about the doctor's house. I wonder father from the doctor keep another 2 or 3 days. It was to hear ascertained the place of there, and anything an injection, was going to ask me to keep. The doctor was away unfortunately. I did not have time to wait for his return as a code to me. With a heart of fall even it did not. I was immediately rushed the rickshaw to the depot. I held against a piece of paper to the wall of the depot. Wrote a letter in mother and brother addressed with a pencil over it. The letter but were those a very simple. I think it would be still better than run not otherwise specified. It asked the rickshaw man to deliver to the home in a hurry. Then she had hopped a train to Tokyo in a drastic momentum. I am in a 3 such as train ringing rumbling. Also put out the letter of the teacher from broke. Through the eye from finally beginning to sisters. Under teacher and testament. 1. Quote, ... I think this summer too from you. I received 3 times letter. Because I want to give a substantial position in Tokyo's was written and ask thanks stores and those. That went into the hand certainly the second time when I read it. I wanted to somehow undo more than to be increased to at least answer. I was thinking however. When confession, I am against your request. Efforts like the I did not, as you know, rather than a narrow dating zone. To me it is much appropriate. Such as are living with only one person in the world. We have no room to dare that kind of effort. But it is not a problem. As a matter of fact, I am a place that has been anxious and how good if this myself. Or let's present as of the mummy, which has been left behind in this state man. Or, of the hour and minute I was horrified every time you repeat in your heart the word or. To come to the edge of the cliff in Kaizu. Like people looking into the valley invisible suddenly bottom. I was cowardly. Then it was agony in the same extent as many cowardly people. Unfortunately, when I have of that, there is no exaggeration to say that the things that you did not almost non-existent. In terms of advancing one step, your status, capital of your subsistence, such a thing was of a like nonsense to me. I did not care even if. I am not a commotion, far from it. I made was pointing to your letter to Josashi. Was not pondering still his arms folded. That there is a property corresponding to the home. What suffering, though not to graduate, or to say that the status algae scraped Liaonings. I would rather in bitter mood. Was only gave you such a glance who is far away. I am against you sorry to be increased to reply. I can fight such a thing for excuse. Not the Rosuru deliberately non-disciplined words in order to provoke you. My real intention is believe that it can be seen well if to see the after. Anyway, because I was silent a place to be greetings somehow. I would like to share the sins of this negligence in front of you. Then I hit you in the telegram. Speaking to Tangible. At that time I kinda wanted to see you. Then I wanted the story of my past for you your desired. You are over the rewire. But came refused for not attending to now Tokyo. I was Nagaraku looking at that telegram disappointed. I looked you also only telegram mind was sorry. Also because me could submit a long letter from the post. Your proceeding to the capital cannot circumstances I understand well. I do not have any reason to think anything is also that it is rude man you. The illness of your important dad and the rejected over there. What you were at a home. the father of my attitude, such as forgetting the life and death what is inconvenient. When I hit the fact that telegram, I had forgotten that of your father, the habit by the time you're in Tokyo, that I should not naku, note well because Nansho was advised as there is for me. I am of such contradiction human beings, or even than my brain. My past might alter me in such a contradictory human result to squeeze me. I also fully acknowledge my ass at this point. I must have my forgiveness to you. Your letter. The last letter came from you. When I read, I thought I was that bad. So thinking I've served the reply of its meaning, but was about to take a brush. I quit without writing a single line, if anyway write, because I wanted raised writing this letter. Thus, because there is still opportunity to write this letter was a little too early. I was to quit. I was again struck a brief telegram that does not extend just to come, because there is it, too. I write this letter from it, to me that not weighing have here I'll brush. As I think of myself, incident Nari thought Nari was the heavy pain that do not carry. I am a little more me against you. I can have Gi did was but a brush thinking of how much other places where you hoteki this obligation. Would it not become also my 1 hour? I wanted also to write unless you see from you. This is might appear to be of my personality that honor the performance of duty. I also it does not anami, as I know of you, because it is a lonely man with no little world of negotiation. That obligation as of obligations, even if me mawashi the before and after his or her left and right, which direction also does not have rooted, whether deliberate or natural, but I had a life that was cut down as much as possible it. But I obligation not of this happens because it is callous too, but rather because sensitive only there is no bear only of energy to stimulation by. I was supposed to send a passive day and month as you can see. So once promised more, it not fulfilled, very. It is unpleasant mood Ivan in order to avoid this unpleasant mood against you. You must also pick up a brush was I. Besides I wanna write. Obligation I wanna write my past as another. Because my past is my only experience. Will not permissible to say that I only owned it to die do not give to the people. It will be also referred to as regrettable. I also there are some such mood, if enough give to people, however, which cannot accept. I think it is better that they buried my experience with my life rather. If it does not actually exist one man that you hear, in my past finally my past, indirectly also will after completion is not the knowledge of others. I am among the Japanese who are the tens of millions. Only to you, I'd like story of my past because you're serious. Because you want to get alive lessons learned from serious to life itself. I was raised cast a shadow of dark this world do not hesitate on top of your head. But do not be afraid, gazing in coagulation of the dark ones. Grab you made to your reference from among them. Because my dark, ethically darker than solid. I am a man who was born ethically. The ethical nurtured was a man. The ethical thinking of is. There may be a place that was different from Oida and today's young people. But what it is also wrong, is a thing of my own. It is not rent for clothes borrowed manowasi. So I think that would be somewhat helpful to you that from now development. You are about contemporary thought problem. Well and stores that directed the discussion to me. I would have known maybe attitudes towards it. I though was not to despise your opinion. Did not get used to such an extent that never can pay respect. It did not have any background in your thoughts. You is because too young to have their own past. I sometimes laughed. You showed me occasionally a thing insufficient likely to face. It's very you like a picture scrolled past me. Was Sumi to expand in front of you. I am out of the Toki Kokoro. It was the first time respect you. From you it is presumptuous in my belly. Because I showed the decision to try to catch those living some. By dividing up my heart. Because tried to susuro the blood flowing warm. At that time I was still alive. Die was hate. So it is promised other day. Had dismissed your request I broke my heart now myself. I'm trying to abisakakayo the blood on your face. When my heartbeat has stopped, it is satisfied if it is possible to new life dwells in your chest. 3. I have lost parents, but are still stored in as my was the hour and minute that are not in the beetle. H. Someday my wife was talking to you. 2 people died of the same disease. Moreover, as wife to you to cause a suspicious. Vanishingly I say simultaneously. I died back and forth. As a matter of fact, the father of the disease was a formidable Antessin Jifusi. It is near stomach. I was contagious to the mother was nursing. I was only one of the boys made between 2 people. Since the house there was a considerable property. It was raised in rather oyo. I have neglected my past. If at that time my parents were there for us without dying. Have at least father or mother or which way or, if me alive because the good with one. I have that oyo mood until now. I think that me would have be able to continue. I was left as stunned after the 2 people. Me without knowledge, without any experience. Also it did not have any separation. When a dying father, mother could not be there in the near. When the dying mother, I had not even yet informed the dead father to the mother. My mother is Said or not Satoshi. Are those near, actual or father had believed that is being directed to the recovery phase. It does not know. Mother just was asking for everything to his uncle. As pointing at me that happened there. Was referred to as the many minutes this child please. I have the permission of the parents from before that. Because I have been supposed to come out to Tokyo. The mother is of it also it seemed going to say in passing. So if you have added only as to Tokyo. Uncle is taken back to shortly after. I answered, you sure you want never good. But do not worry. What mother prays could a woman of the structure that can endure the strong. He, uncle to say that, something that certainly interest, had praised that of the mother towards me. But whether it is how this was really the mother of the last will and testament, I do not think and know now. My mother I knew the terrible name of course father of suffering illness. Then, I was aware also that you have been contagious in it. But his is surely whether believed to be taken their lives in this disease. Doubt and be there I still think there will be plenty. As a mother of words that come out when high on the heat. How whether it be apparent that has passed through the thread. It was often there is not even leave shadows on the mother's head become echo memory. So, but such a thing is not a problem. Habit of just a view in such or try to unwind solve things in the wind. Also round and round turn is. From the other the hour. Minute. Am I to was equipped properly. I think it must be kept to otherwise you from the beginning to you too. But it's illustrative examples like this no big deal related to the immediate problem description. Consider whether rather helpful or not. Please read well and it's going to be a person of you. Extends this nature is on top of the ethical personal conduct or behavior. I think it would begin to doubt more and more other Tokugish and Korai. It poured me of agony and anguish. You should not remember because it is certainly or served with aggressive large force. When the story is out of the right course, let's turn back from worse to understand also to later. Though even this I write this long letter. If compared with the other people that are located in the same position with me. Or are you wanted to or not palm somewhat fallen with. Sound of that train begins to hear the world asleep was also cut off the other. Voice of imperceptibly aware of insects out of the shutters will not faint singing. In a tone that reminds me of the fall of Du or the Shinobu-yaka. Wife who does not know anything has innocently peacefully asleep in the next room. When I take the brush. One character 1, you have ringing in the tip of the pen while finished the hood. I am being toward the paper in the mood that with falling rather. It may pen is out of the lateral for the unfamiliar. But the head I think that not to run in Shidoro is brush with Norin. 4. Anyway, he left behind only one person I say give as a mother. Applications there was no outside then relying on the uncle. My uncle also told me to take care of all assumes the all. Otherwise I was Mitori Hakara, to be out to my Tokyo desired Tei. I was entered to the high school to come to Tokyo. Students of high school at that time was a rough and abuse as brutal than it is now. To what I know was, in a fight with a middle-of-the-night craftsman, there was that inflicted the wound in clogs to the opponent's head. Since it is possible it oft drank alcohol, while the hooked fit jiri, I had been taken to the ones at last beyond the cap of the school. However, on the back of the hat properly it is the person's name. I was written on top of the white sharp of diamond, so it becomes troublesome. The man was about to be queried from the police and a little bit more to the school, but folded a lot of bone. Friend was Yari was to avoid finally without the publicity. This kind of violent act, if let to you grew up in among the elegant now aware, will cause the ridiculous feeling determined. I also think actually ridiculous. But they kind of not in the now of the student. I had a shitsuboku points instead. The gold had been cut from my monthly uncle at that time. You are now. It was much less compared to the student gets sent a dad. But let's course prices are differences. And yet I did not feel any of the shortage. Among the classmate with a number not only over the terms of the economy, it does not in any way mean that had the people to envy aware of circumstances. When the retrospective from now, Will was the person but rather envy the people, because I monthly out of the remittance was Goku book expenses. I was like to buy a book from the hour and minute, and extraordinary costs, often with claims from his uncle Zunsune, because we were able to consume as I think of myself. I do not know anything. Not only were we believe the uncle, always with a grateful heart, I was respected as boon uncle. My uncle was a businessman. Also, it became the county board members. Let's have even from the relationship. Also remembers as there is well connected to the political parties, though is a real brother of the father. At such a point, it seems also to have developed oriented towards that was like unlike my father and say from the personality. My father was one of the man Natsume going to protect the care of the heritage that has been ceded from ancestors. The fun was to do the St. Dono flower. Then I was also like to read and poetry. Also to those of wind, such as document antiques. It was the state that have a lot of hobbies. Although the house was located in the countryside, the two village just spaced apart city. My uncle lived in the city. Sometimes a tool shop that's Kakabutsu from the city, with the incense burner. I came to the show to bother my father. My father and say to bite. Yulk and I likened even with Maman off means. It was a country gentleman with a relatively elegant taste. So safe from temper. There was a compelling Kankaku the open-minded uncle. Yet is also the strangely the relationship was good to people. My father may be likened his uncle. He had said as reliable people with much work than their own. As of myself, which was ceded the property from parents, it was really dull unique wood stem. Said also in other words that it not go because there is no need to fight the world. The word mother was also heard. I also heard, my father is going to be my knowledge but rather, it seems when it, father. But I remember you too good as I was looking at that time bother me in the face. So I'm still not forget it. This much or is credit from my father. An uncle who was or was praised. I'll be white out it. I too was the uncle should be proud even for free. Died father and mother. Everything I have to be must be the care of the person. It did not any more mere pride. It had become a human being necessary to my existence. 5. When I went back to the country I've begun using the summer vacation to my residence that example cross-sectional to the death of his parents. As a new husband, uncle couple lived I put bill. This is before I leave to Tokyo as a promise from him. I left behind only one person is more than not at home. I had no way out than to really. My uncle seems to have been implicated in a variety of companies in the Sanakoro city. Speaking from the convenience of the business, it's better to waking up in home up to now. The two. Sato also laughed much. It is convenient to say then moved to my house was Sue interval. After this, who died? My parents. How to dispose of the residence. At the time of consultation that what I leave to Tokyo will be the word that leaked the uncle of mouth, because my house has a old history. It was known to the people a little in the neighborhood. I think that would the same thing in your hometown. But the house in the countryside with a venerable is a major event for or cell break to have heirs. That much of it is not anything I think if now of me, because at that time was still a child. To came out to Tokyo. The house must be placed to leave the. It suffered a woefully to Koroji. My uncle told me to accept that without a way enter into my empty house, but leave it also dwelling located on the side of the city. Between both told me the trouble unless have my giving the convenience to come and sue. It must not be Arasama of objection from solid to me. I was thinking as much good as long out to Tokyo in any conditions. Childlike even away from home, I was still in the eye of the mind, hoping the house of hometown nostalgia up is there then solid but still was wanted in the mind of the traveler that there is a home to return of their own mood that must go back and do rest. I also came out with much once loved Tokyo. I had strong. I studied hard. After it pleasantly playing, the rest saw in a dream often the house of his hometown, which I think go home. During my absence, uncle does not know we're coming and going between both in any wind. When I arrived, the things of the family had gathered within everyone one house, such as children out to school would have had towards the probably hero, which also had been taken over by the Readig, such as half play to the country for vacation. Everyone was pleased to see my face. I also then when I was the father and mother, was rising happy to see the rather lively and cheerful to become the home state. My uncle expelled 1 second of the boy, which occupied the ken, which has been based on my room. I put me there, because the number of parlor, not a few. Though I was declined to me in addition to the room. Uncle you up home just because. I did not hear. I am out to remember her that the season's deceased father or mother. Without any of the unpleasant. I spent that one summer along with the uncle of the family. Also went back to Tokyo, as only one event of that summer was to throw a rather dim shadow in my mind. Uncle couple aligned the mouth. It was still able to recommend marriage to my just went to high school. It would have also been repeated just 3-4 times before and after. I did just was surprised just to its sudden start. The second time refused ascertained. The third time was no longer have to cross-examination and so on reason from here. Their motive was brevity. I came back to the early and got a daughter-in-law of this house. I just say that white inherit after the deceased father. The house is as long as return is on vacation. So a good thing and I was thinking. Inherit after his father. It receives because it requires a daughter-in-law to it. Both of you will hear one way as a theory. To me, you well know that especially know the countryside of circumstances. I also would had not hated it absolutely. But I just came to apprenticeship to Tokyo. It is to look at things in a telescope, was only desired in the distance far away. I do not give consent to the wishes of his uncle. I have finally also left my house. 6. I forgot isn't that of marriage. Looking at the face of the youth that are seated take my surroundings. That Shoteijimi does not have even one person. Everyone is free. Thus entirely alone-ish think we. This kind of carefree to be among the people. Once crowded and are on the back, or are forced to family reasons. But might there was what was already a wife. Childlike I am there to notice did not. Then also those of the people placed in such special circumstances. And the danger to the four sides. Would Ed refrain so as not to be an edge such in a ring of the story far of the student as much as possible. Later given. I myself was already the set. I find it evening not know. Just walk the road of pleasantly scholastic-ish children, to the grade of the end. I also tying the luggage. I came back to the country with a parent of the tomb. Then in the same way as last year, in a home that had the parents, also saw a face unchanged and uncle couple of the children. I smell the smell of again where hometown. The smell was or those still nostalgic to me. It was not the difference in those grateful even as a change to break the first grade of monotone, but in the same kind of smell that helped grow this myself. I also has been confronted from his uncle the sudden marriage problems to nose ahead. Where it says the uncle is the only was repeated again last year of solicitation. The reason was also the same as last year, just before this when they are recommended for, though did not have any of the object, because this time had caught a decent bottom line of the person. But I was not still bother. It's because the person was a woman who hits the uncle of the daughter that is my cousin. If Carreri got the woman, it is convenient for each other. My father was also talking about such a thing in Zanjo, and my uncle says, I also think that it is convenience if so. My father thought that also has obtained to that of that was that way of talking to uncle. But it is I have said to my uncle, because the first time I noticed, from before that or not said, is not a matter that has been Satoshi. So I was surprised, though I was surprised, even where there is no reasonable hope of his uncle. It was well known for MIA carelessly, or might this is so, but perhaps that was indifferent to his cousin. Will has become a major source factor. I went to all the time play to the uncle who is in the city from one of the small test house. But not only go, I stayed there often. Then as this cousin I was acquainted from the hour and minute. You would also be aware that the absence of established the example of love between brother and sister. I do not may have been arbitrarily no yin a fact that has been the certified between the men and women who were too intimate with all the time contact. Held in a fresh feeling that occurs the stimulation is a loss necessary to love I think so. Get key incenses, as limited at the moment of incense in the out-fired, to taste a wine, as in the moment he started drinking. Such racy 1 point also in love impulses exist on top of the time I do not think of anything beyond there. Once you pass through there in cold blood, the more become domesticated if get used. Only familiarity increases. The love of the nerve only come to gradually paralyzed. Also I do second thought. I could not bring myself to make this cousin to the wife. If uncle if I insist. I was referred to as the good to extend the marriage until my graduation. But because good is also saying hurry. Only cup of shugen to one of the now if you can was also good and I want to finish. No hope in the person is the same thing I me was in which way. I declined again. My uncle was a nasty face. Cousin cried, because not come up to me there is no sad it had rejected an offer of marriage, but because it was painful as a woman, as I do not love a cousin, that do not love me also cousin was not no well to me. I also came out to Tokyo. 7. I came back the third time as then also a year was past mounting of the summer I fled the Tokyo impatient at any time the need of the school year test to me because hometown was so nostalgic. There will be also remembered you. Birthplace is different as the color of the air. The smell of the land is also exceptional. Memory of the father and mother are also floating around our dark of the year. 7 or 8 of the 2 wrapped a month in the are you with the coagulation like a snake that has entered the hole is what was the warm good mood. And to me, simple I am about marriage problems with his cousin. Had so much thought that there is no need to damage the head. Unpleasant things refuse not to leave anything after it to me even. Am I believe this? So even though you did not bend the will as desired uncle, I was calm but rather without ever remember the kutuo to do that yet during the past 1 year. It was returned to the phase defect block remains of the healthy country. But look back in uncle of the attitude is different. Me do not try to idako to their bosom to the original is good face. For back, there were not noticed during the 5 days that still grew up in Oyo. I am suddenly the strangely remembered just something of the opportunity. then the strange is not the only uncle. Aunt also I strange. Cousin also I strange. Out of the junior high school. To say that I'm going to now go to higher commercial of Tokyo. You strange until the boy's uncle was Arkikyo Wasi the situation in a letter. No longer is yes without thinking as my nature. Why will my mood has changed this? No wit why beyond has changed this. I suddenly dead father and mother. Dull wash my eye. Suddenly the world was doubt that it would be me to look like ascertained. I am father and even after the mother has gone in this world. In the same way as when I was to those who love me. I believed in the back somewhere mind. However, even that time I was never in the dark quality sense. However, lumps of seeded from ancestors' superstition also. I was lurking with a strong force in my blood. Would lurking even now. I went to only one person mountain. Knelt in front of the parents of the grave. Half the morning of meaning. Halfway I was kneeling in the mood of gratitude. Then happiness of my future. In the mood like it is even still gripped in their hands lying to the bottom of this cold stone. Prayed to them to protect my destiny. You might laugh. I also think that there is no way to be laughed at. But am I was such a man? My world has changed so fluttering palm. However, was not the experience of beginning to me. I am 16. Wax when I was 7. When the discovery of the fact that the first time there is a beautiful things in the world. Was surprised startled at once. Nothing cursory doubt their own eyes. Nothing cursory was rubbing his eye. Then he shouted, "Oh beautiful," in my mind. 16. Speaking of 7, also a woman and a man. It is when I stick the sex appeal that say to the profane. I was with the sex appeal as a representative of the beautiful things in the world. I was able to see for the first time a woman against the opposite sex that did not adhere of worry a little to its existence until now. Is the blind eye is opened immediately. Since then my heaven and earth are a thing entirely new. I was Kokoro Zui uncle attitude is also. Would be what exactly the same as this. It was Kokoro Zui as suddenly. Without preparing any premonition. We come to the unexpected. Suddenly his family and he is like the reflection in my eye is different from until now. I was surprised. Then is allowed to in this state. Now I feel that do not know if your destination is what happens. 8. I uncle until now. For the property of the house that had been on leave. Have to get the detailed knowledge. I was raised to feel that I'm sorry for the parents dead uncle as a self-proclaimed that it is. Busy body. Every night in the same place sleeping did not have 2 days. And go home 3 days the wind. Such is live in the way of the city. Come and go between both. I had spent the day with no face with fall in the day was. Then I used like my favorite phrase the word busy. When that does not occur any doubt. I had thought I'd actually busy. Then. Is not reluctant busy nowadays flow and wonder not. I ironically had been interpreted. For but that of the property. In the eye that could purpose of time consuming try to talk. And see this busy once state. It simply avoid me the eye came no longer receive only the excuse. I did not get easily the opportunity to catch the uncle. To be continued. Thank you for your viewing. If you like please subscribe to the channel. I am very encouraged.